Hi, this is Laura Holyoke, and I have a PowerPoint for you introducing the structural lens. So in looking through the structural lens, this really illuminates all the non-human aspects of an organization. If you took out the people, you should be able to see the structure of an organization, also known maybe as a blueprint, the architecture, framework, linkages, or foundation. This is the most rational and visible manifestation of an organization. One of the ways to think about structure is to think of it as building blocks. Structures are necessary to make organizations look legitimate. They also really are necessary to help organizations function effectively. Structure provides the formally sanctioned expectations and exchanges among people in the organization and the external environment outside of the organization. So how do we build an organization? From one block up. Also, one of the things that's most often looked at is and done in organizations is restructuring of an organization. It's a lot easier to move reports around, that's simple structure, and change the organization chart as well as changing policies. Those are pretty easy to do, especially compared to the other lenses that we're going to look at. So one way to look at the structural elements of an organization is that they should be somewhat like a clock. The organizations should be efficient machines with replaceable parts that function in an orderly way to accomplish its goals. So organizations are designed with a purpose, that they have goals, there's a mission in place, there's a vision in place, and a plan or a strategy in terms of what that organization is trying to accomplish. And then also how the work is divided among people and the coordination of the work are two of the big key pieces that Bowman and Deal talk about. And we're going to talk about that a little more here. So every organization will have a division of labor. That is what tasks need to be accomplished. And also they call it differentiation. So who does what tasks need to be performed, how to allocate that work, and then the coordination or integration of those tasks. So the coordination of efforts means what gets done. That is, we look at grouping. We can group by function, that all of the budget people are in the same place. We can look at time, working different shifts in an organization. We can look at different products. An organization may be divided up into different sections based on the product that it produces, or the customers that come in, somewhat like a university. It can also be grouped by place if there's several geographic locations, and then process. So find an arrangement that works really for the organization. If you read about in your Bowman and Deal book, Harvard and McDonald's, and see how that integration, the task differentiation, and then integration works. Part of that coordination is vertical and then lateral coordination. So vertical coordination means that an organization is really top down, that it's built on levels of authorities, and that rules and policies are very predictable and produce consistent behavior within members of that organization, as well as planning and control systems come from the top and come straight down. This is about forecasting and measuring within an organization, and we're going to talk about those more in a little bit. Whereas lateral horizontal coordination is much less formal, it's more flexible. This goes along the same people that are in the same place within the hierarchy of an organization. So a lot of times this means meetings or task forces. These should be simple and quick, and lateral has much more benefits when the environment is turbulent, whereas vertical when the environment is less turbulent and more stable. Here's the first organization chart. Let you know a little bit about hierarchy. So some structural imperatives. These are a universal set of internal and external parameters and can be seen in all organizations. So one of the dimensions of an organization and its structural components is the size and age of that organization. As the size grows, and oftentimes as organizations get older, the complexity and formality increase. Core processes or technologies. This is what an organization does or produces. We're going to talk about that more in a minute, but it must align with the structure of the organization. The environment can be looked at in terms of imperatives. A stable environment, you could use a more simpler structure, whereas uncertain or turbulent environment, the structure needs to be flexible and it's probably more complex. Strategies and goals, the variation and clarity, consistency of goals requires appropriate structural adaptation. So what is our strategy for getting things done? And are we consistently moving towards our goal? Information technology, this permits flatter, more flexible, decentralized structures in organizations, especially when information is the main mode of what's shared in that organization. And then finally, the nature of the workforce. More educated and professional workers need and want greater autonomy and discretion. Again, I think Bullman and Deal point this out nicely with their example between Harvard and McDonald's. Every organization has a core process or core processes or technologies. Broke down very simply, each organization has inputs, has the technology or the core processes that it does, and then outputs. So the inputs are raw materials that go in. As a university, we have, don't take this bad, anybody, but we have ignorant students as an input, or uneducated students, if you will. And then what happens inside the organization is the technology or the throughput, the activities. That technology is what the organization exists to do. And everything is based on the output of the organization. Should be a quality product, students graduating with their degrees. Research is another output. There's two kinds of technologies in every organization. They are the core technologies and support technologies. So core is really what an organization does, what everything else is hinged on. It produces a product. Research and teaching, or educated students for a university, and support technology is what helps along the core technology. Support technology examples around university sometimes are, well, currently University of Idaho still has its own facilities section, facilities department. I'm not sure what it's called. Anyhow, many organizations, many other universities have hired this out or contracted it out. So the facilities is done by an outside company. Another example that what we've done, I think we still have Sodexo. Anyhow, the university does not run and pay for our food system on campus. Instead, we contract out to a different organization to do that. Lawn maintenance, upkeep for the outside. A lot of institutions have hired out, again, to contract for this work to be done. So the support technology, when the external environment gets crazy, the organization buffers core technology first. So support technology usually is what gets cut, what is looked at as more fluff or just making things nice around here. However, one thing to think about is that all supporting technologies have their core, what it is that they do, and their own support. So their core is to do the business that they've been contracted to do with an institution. Handy wrote about this in terms of a Shamrock organization, And he said that we're moving more towards, and he said this in 1989, and you can indeed see this more and more, that every organization has a set of core workers as part of the Shamrock, and then a contractual fringe. So these are other organizations that we contract out that have their own core technology. And then we have a flexible workforce, people that are not at an institution, do not base their careers on working at a place, may be regular help sometimes, or just I shouldn't say contracted, but maybe people, just individuals that have contracts. So these are the flexible workforce that go along with organizations. Used to not be the case in the 1950s, that the organization was all in one and encompassed everything that it did. So it used to be that universities ran their own dining halls and cafeterias, that they did all their maintenance, that all their outside upkeep. I am going to come back and finish the next part of the lens in a different recording.